What's up, everybody? We are live. We'll do it live, like Bill O'Reilly said, one of my favorites. Hope everybody's having a great weekend. It's Saturday night. You know, every weekend I'm probably going to hop on and do a little solo segment, talk about a couple of topics. And tonight, I realized that this week was the anniversary of an album that's been very important to me. That is Kiss Destroyer. Now, this record obviously precedes my birth, yet somehow it's been one of the probably the most pivotal albums in my life. So when I saw that it was the anniversary of it, I definitely wanted to hop on and talk about it. So I guess I'll go back to the first time that I ever discovered the album Kiss Destroyer. So for me, this was actually the first Kiss record that I heard that was a full Kiss album that was produced. How I discovered Kiss was over the 20th Century Masters Greatest Hits. And then there was a gold Greatest Hits compilation, which had 2 discs. So I picked that up, and it basically went from Kiss in the early 1970s all the way until their current day stuff. So through the non-makeup years, and it basically just had all the singles. So I knew Detroit Rock City, I knew Shout It Out Loud, and I think I knew Beth. So by the time I got Kiss Destroyer, I knew most of the songs on the record. Probably one of Kiss's most mainstream/recognizable records. If not only for the cover, basically for the songs. It's almost a greatest hits record. And, you know, the first thing I remember when I put it on is that weird intro of the car keys and the dishes being washed and all of that stuff that's on the radio. So I guess that the person talking on the radio in the intro is actually Bob Ezrin, the producer of this album. So I didn't know that at the time. At the time, it's just some car crash report on the radio. And it turns out that the report on the beginning of this song is actually based on a true story. So the song Detroit Rock City is evidently based on the story of a guy who was going to see Kiss live, and he got hit by a car or something. Some sort of car accident that ended up in his death. And he was headed to a Kiss concert. So evidently that's the story behind the whole thing on the radio about a car crash and the guy getting in his car and eventually crashing it. So just a really weird track all around, not only for that unique story, but in Detroit Rock City, the guitar riff in general, all the guitar parts are just so unique and one of a kind. I don't know if it was Kiss who came up with this, the harmonized guitar parts, but basically Ace and Paul are playing in harmony this entire track, and it's very unique. It's not something that I've really heard done on other rock records, at least before, and it just makes for, ultimately, I think Detroit Rock City is probably one of the most unique songs ever written in rock. There's really nothing else like it, and I think it really showcases Kiss probably at their best. I mean, Peter Criss is hitting that lick like never before. Like I say, one of the greatest solos. If you really think about the strong point of Kiss Destroyer, it's got to be Ace. You know, Ace on every song. I know they took him off the solo for Sweet Pain, but every other song that Ace does on this, it just is out of the park and is, again, really not comparable to any other rock albums, if you ask me. So it goes in from the first track there, Detroit Rock City, into King of the Nighttime World. We have the car crash, and it goes into that. Now, honestly, Kiss often opens concerts with Detroit Rock City, but I actually find King of the Nighttime World is a fantastic opener. I think that it really has a lot of energy. It really captures the youthful vibe of Kiss at that time. You know, I heard a great quote, and I think it was Chris Sinzak from the Decibel Geek podcast. Shout out to those guys. Great show. And he said, Destroyer was the album where Kiss first started singing about being Kiss. Instead of just singing about meeting a girl at the rock show or you know, going to the liquor store like Cold Gin, they were actually able to sing about fame, fortune, women, and success. And this is sort of the first record that we really have where Kiss is singing about the Kiss lifestyle and really talking about what it's like to be Kiss. So I think that's what we're hearing from Paul Stanley. You know, remember, this is a guy who growing up was not popular. Paul Stanley did not really get much play with women while he was growing up. And it pretty much took until when Kiss became successful for him to even be in the picture when it came to women. I mean, I think he had a couple girlfriends, but Paul Stanley was definitely never, you know, going out with supermodels and crazy stuff like that before he was in Kiss. So I think songs like this, you hear "Come On and Love Me" and stuff. It is sort of a more playful, sort of, seeking out a woman kind of thing, and trying to please a woman and be tailored to her needs. Whereas a song like "King of the Nighttime World" is like, bitch, I'm the shit. You know what I mean? Just walking in the room like, what's up? I don't care who you are. I don't care how much you made. I'm the shit. I'm the king of the nighttime world. So just a fun, youthful song. Just a song about celebrating good times. And a song I've always really liked. Again, the guitar, to just let the opening note ring out for so long, and then just da-da-da, and you're just letting that ring out on the guitar. Very unique guitar parts. So I would actually really like to interview Bob Ezrin and talk to him about not only his work on this, but many other records, but specifically about this one, because for people who don't know, like, you got to understand, when Bob Ezrin, who had done The Wall, and he did a lot of records for Alice Cooper, when he came in to do this record with Kiss, he basically had to kick their ass metaphorically to get this record done. Because most of Kiss's records before Destroyer were meat and potatoes rock records, right? They were just drums, bass, guitar. There were not orchestral elements, really. There were not really sound effects and skits, so to speak, and elements like that. And I think Bob Ezrin really knew that Kiss could capture these elements, and that's why he really had to sort of, and I say kick their ass because, I mean, you read Peter Criss's book, you read Paul Stanley's book. Keep time, motherfucker, keep time. I mean, Bob Ezrin was like a whip cracker with Peter Criss, trying to get him to play in time. And I think this is Peter Criss's best documented drum performance that's in a studio. I mean, just impeccable drums on most of the songs. There's still moments where when you listen to it, it's not quite as good as a lot of other 70s records when it comes to drums. There's things that sort of sound off tempo, maybe not on the metronome, but maybe I have a drummer's ear. I mean, I've been playing drums for 6 to 7 years, and I really hear that. I'm like a human metronome when it comes to that, but it's just one of those things. But nonetheless, great performance. Track number 3, God of Thunder. This was a song that I really didn't know what to make of when I was a kid. When I first heard this song, I was confused, and I was scared, I think. I was like 7, and I think that most people were freaked out and sort of scared when they heard this for the first time. Really trippy and weird Kiss song. Definitely my preferred song for when Gene spits his blood and does his little skit live. I don't like it as much when they do I Love It Loud. I like it when they go to God of Thunder. I think it's one of the definitive Gene songs. And if you're a diehard Kiss fan, you'll know that this song actually came from Paul Stanley roasting Gene Simmons. And basically, Paul Stanley wrote the demo for God of Thunder and was essentially mocking what a Gene Simmons song would sound like. I'm the Lord of the Wasteland and the modern day Man of Steel. And the funniest part is Gene heard the parody of himself and said, you know what, that's pretty good. I think I kind of want to get that. That's my first Gene Simmons impression. That's the premiere right there, the impression. But Gene actually picked up the parody song and made it God of Thunder, which became one of his trademark tracks and one of his nicknames. So it's pretty hilarious. I don't know what that means. I don't know what that says, but it's pretty goddamn funny when you think about the fact that they were making fun of Gene with that song and it became his hit. But really cool track, and definitely, again, just a very experimental step for Kiss. Not just the meat and potatoes, sort of, we can do a good riff, we can do a good solo. We're actually going to switch it up, add some sound effects, add some different elements. And yeah, definitely just a good step for Kiss. Song number 4, however, Great Expectations. Can we just be honest, you and me? I know we all love Kiss here. This is not a good song. Can we admit that? Great Expectations is not a good song. I don't know what Gene was thinking. I don't know what the band was thinking. I don't know how much fucking coke some of these producers were doing at this time, or how much relations they were having with women that were clouding their minds, but this is not a good song. And I don't know. I don't know what to say about this song. It's strange. It's bizarre. Parts of this album actually sort of feel like a fever dream to me because it's just bizarre. It's bizarre. So I don't like that song at all. A redeeming factor of it is the good musical arrangements. It's well arranged. I mean, the orchestra is good, the choir is good, but just a strange song, if you ask me. I actually have to refer to my Spotify track list to know what song is next. Sweet Pain is next. And see, that's because this album, Destroyer, right here, is one of those records that, like I said, since it was the first Kiss album I really delved into that was not a compilation, it's one of those albums that I've sort of killed in a way. It's like it's overkill with how much I've played it in my life. I've been listening to this since I was like 6. So like a song like Detroit Rock City is not really a track that I go back to. However, when I've been listening to it for this episode here, I realize like just how good a song like Detroit Rock City really is. I mean, just that song alone, that might be the best thing Kiss ever made. I mean, if it's not considered one of the top 5 rock songs, it is definitely underrated. Sweet Pain, again. Oh, I'm sorry. You know what? I skipped Flaming Youth. Look at that. And I got the list right in front of me. Flaming Youth is a song that I like quite a bit, actually. Lyrically, it's a little weak for the hook. Flaming Youth will set the world on fire. Okay. I don't know what that's supposed to mean to me. But again, I think it's sort of like King of the Nighttime World Part 2. It's a fun song celebrating being young, celebrating being an outcast, an outlaw, and sort of celebrating rock and roll. And I think it's well arranged. I think it's well done. Sweet Pain, like I was about to say, I think is more on the mediocre side. It's just, I think that's just the best way to say it. There's nothing really super special about the song, but there's something about it that is catchy. Musically, the chorus and the hook and the girls singing in the background and all these little elements are sort of good. It's not that great, but it's good. I mean, when I was a kid, I loved all the songs. I mean, I wouldn't have even been able to do a review, but it's really been interesting giving it a bit of a break and then coming back. Song number 7, Shout It Out Loud. I obviously wasn't around in the 70s, and if I was, then I'm looking pretty good. But when I think about the 70s and what it would have been like, Shout It Out Loud is probably the audio representation of what I think the 70s would have been like. It's talking about calling your friends in the neighborhood, going out, having a rock and roll party, not feeling down, forgetting all your problems, it's just rock and roll. It's pure, good, and simple rock and roll. And again, those harmonized guitars, Paul and Ace playing the harmony. It's like they're battling each other, going up against each other. And then Gene chiming in with it's sort of like a mixture of their 2 harmonies on the bass in a weird way. It's just, whoever came up with that is a genius, a musical genius. Probably the 4 of them. And it just really sounds good. Shout It Out Loud, I think has been in virtually every concert Kiss has done since 1976, and for good reason. It's just a fantastic song. It gets everybody singing. And again, one of their better hits. I don't know what was in the air during this record. I love so many Kiss songs, but they're not hits. They're not commercial hits that you could play on the radio. It's like that Sopranos episode with Hesh. A hit is a hit, kid, for reasons we could never qualify or explain, or quantify and explain. You know what I mean? So that's kind of what it is. And Shout It Out Loud is a hit. It's just a hit. There's no debate about it. The next track on Kiss Destroyer, let me double check this track. Beth, the almighty hit Beth. So I think this won the People's Choice Award in 1976. It won some sort of award for Kiss, and it was one of their first major awards for Beth. Also, Kiss they always got asked in interviews if it was them playing the orchestral instruments on this album. That was one of the most commonly asked questions for Kiss back in 76. Of course, they did not play it. Bob Ezrin brought in a number of orchestras for this album, as well as the Brooklyn, I think it was the Catholic Boys Choir, one of the Brooklyn Boys Choirs for Great Expectations. I'm like a Kiss encyclopedia with this stuff. It's like burned into my brain. In science class, when I was reading Kiss books under the table, that was the knowledge that really stuck into my head for the most part at that point. But Beth, again, just a really bold experimental step for Kiss. Really good that they let Peter do it. Peter didn't write the song, and that's something that sort of always stuck with him against him from the rest of the band. They always say Peter didn't really write it. He brought in the song Beck, which was some sort of rough version. And it was pretty much refined by Paul and by Gene and by Bob, is how the story goes. Again, I wasn't there, but that's how the story goes. And I don't see that as a negative against Peter or something that takes away from the success of the song. In order to sing a song in a way that has conviction, and in a way that tells a story like that song does, and to keep the listener drawn in throughout that story, takes a lot of talent and takes a lot of skill to do, especially with such a nice vocal tone and just overall delivery. So if anything, I think Peter Criss, this is probably his best work in terms of a musical artist, next to Hard Luck Woman. Two incredible songs. When Peter Criss sings a ballad, he just knocks it out of the park. I would really like to have heard more songs like that from Peter. I think they tried it again on the Psycho Circus record. What was that song called? I Can't Stop the Rain? No, that wasn't the song. There was some sort of song on Psycho Circus that was a ballad, and it didn't work. But I wish Peter could have done more of those in his prime. Fantastic stuff. Really good stuff. I think Bob Ezrin deserves a lot of credit for this record. You hear about The Wall, you hear about Alice, but this record needs to be mentioned more when it comes to Bob. The last musical song, full song on this is Do You Love Me? Again, just what a unique song. Are there any other songs that have been released that sound like Do You Love Me? Just so almost, I don't like to use this word because it's overused, but it's borderline innovative. Because, a drum introduction, again, ringing out guitar chords, and then a really nice, like when they go into that ending part on the guitar, just overall a very pleasurable song to hear. And it really paints a picture in your head. Honestly, I'm going to be honest with you guys. Like, I picture Shannon Tweed when I hear this song. Shannon Tweed in like the 80s, in her prime, like when Paul says, even the fans, they know your face from all the magazines and your backstage pass and black sunglasses. I imagine a badass Shannon Tweed standing there. And I had a weird experience where I went to see Gene Simmons live. This was actually the day before I interviewed Gene at the Edmonton Expo. And I actually sat behind Shannon Tweed at the concert. I was just sitting where I was, and she ended up coming and sitting in front of me. And I was like, okay, cool, this is great. But it was so weird to see all the fans coming up and throughout the whole show asking her for photos, and Gene shouted her out and she acknowledged him. And then, of course, a lot more people started coming. But it was like the song. It was like, Do You Love Me? Like, I'm sitting here, I was kind of thinking of the song, and I'm like, this is kind of like the girl that they're talking about. So a really weird, cool experience. Kiss has just provided me so much joy in my life. I've had so many fun, weird, trippy, just memorable experiences with Kiss, surrounding Kiss. Just a really positive thing in my life, and something that I love to talk about. And, the fact that it's impacted so many other people in such a positive way, it means a lot. It's just a really important thing. And if I can do anything, it's really to help that memory continue and to show that people are still discovering this and falling in love with this, and people, who were on the younger side, it still impacts their life moving forward. And, if I ever have kids, I'm going to show them Destroyer. I'm going to show them Kiss. I guess Do You Love Me is technically the last track on this album, but it closes with the crazy outro of all these wild production sounds, which is actually technically called Rock and Roll Party. And I just want to say that I think this is one of the best production feats of the 70s in terms of rock. Just because how do you do that? Like, how do you do that without a computer? Really think about that. How do you mix all these echoes and all these weird sample sounds and just all this stuff without a computer and make it sound edited? Like, this is something that would be not even worth mentioning now, because anybody could make a track like Rock and Roll Party where there's all that weird noise now. I could do it in 2 seconds on this interface right here. But to put that together back then, it's just, it really boggles my mind to picture a guy cutting tape with a razor blade full of coke, probably. Not Bob Ezrin. I'm not saying he does coke. I'm just saying come on. We're all aware of what was going on. But really, to picture that, it's a mind fuck to me, because I can't imagine how these guys made this happen. You know, things like The Wall too. I mean, speaking of Bob Ezrin, I mean, how they did it, we'll never know. And it will likely never be captured again. So just one of the greatest albums of all time. I would probably give it a solid 7.5 out of 10 in terms of a rating, if I'm going to do a rating. You know, there's some moments that are weird. I think the only criticism I really have for Destroyer is, I think when you're experimenting and being experimental, you have to know what experiments not to use. And I think an experiment like Great Expectations is an embarrassing one. You know, I mean, listen, it's probably better than any song I've ever written. But at the same token, it's just odd. I mean, if I'm putting on a 70s greatest hits and I'm putting like Zeppelin and Cheap Trick and all these different bands, I'm not going to put that on there. But I guess every album has a dud. And, again, that's one of the things that happens when you're experimenting. Some things will come out really good from that experimentation, almost maybe better than expected, but some things will come out worse than expected. And that's, I think, what Kiss learned with Destroyer. So that's my thoughts on the record. I just kind of wanted to go on a little trip down memory lane and really think about this album. And I want to know what you think of this record. Leave a comment and tell me what you think of Kiss Destroyer. I'm doing these solo episodes for about 20-25 minutes every single weekend, every single Monday. Right now it's Monday. We're releasing the interview podcast. The next interview I have dropping is JJ French, founding guitarist of Twisted Sister. An hour with him, and you want to talk about Pink Floyd, Led Zeppelin, Kiss, Jimi Hendrix, all these guys that I've sort of mentioned throughout this. In terms of concert stories, wow, it is incredible. Like, literally, there was a moment where I said, I'm just going to collect my jaw off the floor. So that's going to come out Monday, and this is going to come out every single week, me talking with you guys. So very much love to everybody all around the world, and we will talk to you soon.